Good afternoon and welcome back to my fountain pen review channel. Apologies, it's been quite some time since my last upload. I've only recently moved. I completed my move mid-July and I've only just now settled both into the new apartment, which is considerably smaller than my old residence, and my new job. I work as a medical doctor, and as part of the job, we move around every 6 months, every year, and I'm only just now acclimating both to sort of my new environment and the associated bureaucracies involved with that, but that's a conversation for another time. This is going to be somewhat of a less structured video than my usual pen and reviews, sort of less didactic, and I'm just going to use it to showcase two of these custom-made pens in my collection from a smaller pen manufacturer. I'm a big fan of the big pen design houses. I have lots of their various creations, waterman, sailor, pilot, etc., and they have a lot of proven designs that stand the test of time, and their vintage pen selections are also very excellent. But from now and again I do scroll around and have a look for newer manufacturers who have a little bit of a different approach, which I find interesting. And this pen manufacturer in question today is a gentleman that goes by Atelier F. You can find his work on his own Instagram page, which I'll link below in the description. And there's also plenty of other people, including Doodlebud, who have given the well-deserved attention to his work. He's a gentleman based out of the Philippines. He's an Italian gentleman, I believe. And his work primarily is is fountain pen making. I don't believe he does his own nibs yet. As far as I know, he imports your standard Yovo 6 nibs that fit into his pens, but he does his pens essentially out of titanium rods, where with different anodization options, different engraving options, different patterning options. And I'll talk a little bit about sort of the more custom aspect to these pens. He has a few different models. This is the F4. There was the F3 that went before, that has more of a tapering towards the end, so more of a classic cigar shape. The F2 is again sort of a little bit more tapered, but the cap is a little bit bigger than the rest of bigger in diameter, and I think he does a few pocket pens as well, which I'm not a big pocket pen guy, but I'm sure those will be of some interest to those who appreciate that smaller form factor. So this is the first pen I got from Atelier F, and this is a custom F4, which you can see is quite gorgeous in terms of the colouring and the patterning that is available here. I'll give you sort of a brief overview of sort of the design. So there is his maker's mark at the top of his pen. There's no corresponding similar factor at the back here. The cap comes off in quite a few screws, so there's no chance of that coming accidentally undone, although those who like being able to uncap their pens quickly might not be a fan of that. And this is the grip section, which has sort of a nice taper with a flare out towards the end, which I really like as a design component of any sort of grip section. I have a Shown Design cursive monarch here, which is obviously not standard, but this this grip section is threaded for Yovo 6s, which enables me to put this in with no problem. Put this down for the moment. So that's the grip section, and this is the body, which comes off again with quite a few screws. So that's on quite securely. Now I have no idea whether this isn't appropriate as an eyedropper. I haven't tried it. Atelier F has never mentioned that to me, so I don't necessarily know that that's a wise thing to do, but I'm sure those who want a bigger ink capacity will be well able to experiment with that. But it takes a standard international converter that goes into any Yovo 6, and that just screws back on. This pen is essentially the same in all those components. It's just a difference in the actual appearance and the patterning. So, talking about the patterning, he offers certain things as standard, sort of anodization, coloring options, which are fairly easy to achieve. It's just a matter of physics, just a different amount of voltage run through the titanium in an electrolyte bath, and that produces different coloring options. Now, this is not quite that. This is what he calls his entropic finish, which is achieved from what he's described to me by superheating the titanium and then plunging it into a ferric chloride bath, and that's what produces this quite interesting, almost electricity type patterning. I don't know if I'm able to change that somewhat or make things a little more evident to see. Also, as part of my new setup, I have my Galaxy Watch here, which allows me to do some hands-free zooming, so I'm not constantly touching my phone and destabilizing the focus. But you can see there's a rather interesting electricity type lightning effect on there. This is the body, which is a little bit more blue, and then up here on the cap it's a little bit more subtle. There's some purple colouring that isn't as clear under these lighting conditions, but it's a little more purple and less blue up there. I'll just zoom out a little bit so you can get a better view. There we go. This part in the center is just some faceting, which is obviously done by hand, and takes quite a bit of effort. He does offer this as sort of a full cap, full body option. I opted to have this as sort of half and half, with the entropic finish to evoke sort of the idea that a bolt of lightning struck the middle, caused some explosive nature in the middle, and led to this gorgeous electrical residuum out to the sides here. As part of sort of the overall color scheme, I got this shown monoc as a cursive nib, so that writes as sort of a fairly crisp metallic on the normal end, and sort of a very broad line on the reverse. And I got this as sort of as a bare silver titanium, leading up to sort of this this sort of purple blue tint, similar to what's on the cap here anyhow. So I thought that was a good color match. And we'll just move over to this pen. So this is slightly different in terms of the work that he did on it, and this was quite a bit more sort of technically difficult. This was time consuming, and this was more technically difficult, just in terms of sort of the color that I wanted for this pen. So this sort of more delicate engraving work, this pattern here, I made myself with some aid from some internet available resources, but mainly some touch-ups by myself. It's sort of a dual dragon aspect with some nice Japanese motifs here and some arrows here. And overall, if you're a fan of video games like Overwatch, you should be pretty easy to spot who's inspired this pen, especially with this this middle shape here, this engraving pattern here, and all of this is achieved through CNC laser engraving, which he does offer as part of his customization options. This was a little bit more technically tricky. The engraving happened after sort of a double anodization. From how I understand it, with regards to the science of it all, the blue color is actually achieved from sort of a higher voltage than the gold. So he did the gold first and then the blue, and then he did a fairly light engraving to essentially burn off the blue and reveal the gold underneath, and that's what's produced this sort of blue gold coloring to this pen, which was quite difficult to figure out, but I think the effect was quite good. However, through no mistake of Atelier F, I put this pen into my pocket on the one occasion, and as you can see, there was some minor abrasion to the sort of the surface blue color, which has led to some rub off there, and that's not Atelier F's fault at all. That's me being somewhat careless and silly, to be honest. But I think overall it's still a very gorgeous pen, and as you can see, even this middle band here, which is plain silver, plain bare titanium, on this pen is anodized a lovely gold color with some engraving work on it as well. And he does offer sort of other patterns for this center band, and does include, as I've seen recently, someone's actual name written in their own handwriting across the middle. Now that's actually kind of tempting to me to get another pen with the same thing for myself, but maybe later down the line. The grip section is entirely the same, just anodized gold color, and here is a number 6 Yovo Prisma nib that I got from Stilo Stile, which I thought would match the sort of the blue goldy aspect of this pen a bit more, but it's more of a rainbow color now that I have it, and maybe would actually fit this pen a bit more, but I still like it. And I think overall this is still a fairly nice pen. In terms of sort of balance, it's not a heavy pen like most titanium pens. They're not particularly too heavy compared to their sort of full stainless steel counterparts. Doesn't post, although as I said, he does have pocket pens which do post, and those are available as a matter of course. The balance wise, it's more back weighted more than anything. This is sort of a more solid piece of titanium than it is up front, so it's a little bit back weighted, but it's overall the balance is good, and I really do like this sort of outward flaring of the grip section here that gives your finger something to rest on to stop you slipping. There are some pens which have sort of a more smooth, tapered grip section where I sometimes have a bit of a grip issue. I don't have that here. I sort of grip it with a sort of a fairly standard tripod type grip, so my fingers are fairly protected by this little little lip here, and the same goes for this pen as well. As you can see, there's a nice little grip here as well. In terms of the ease of getting these customization options, very easy. I mainly communicated with Atelier F through my Instagram account, and he's very responsive and very receptive to your design ideas, and he offers alternatives where he thinks they may not work as intended, and that was more specifically with regards to this pen than this pen. I designed most of the sort of the patterning work here on Photoshop, and where I thought I had done like sort of fairly good job with ensuring sort of the seamlessness, especially up here with the patterning on the dragon body. There was a little bit of sort of disconnect that he was able to correct on his end without much issue, and I really appreciate that, because needless to say that the amount of layers that I had on my Photoshop file made it near impossible to figure out what I was doing. So I really appreciate him taking the time and the effort to help me out and achieve my design ideas. In terms of sort of cost, I suppose that may be the one aspect which might trip some people up. Now, in terms of the cost itself, actually, I'll have to go back into my Instagram to pull up the full cost there. But in total, I paid in sort of two halves. He likes to do sort of a deposit in the initial stage, just to guarantee that he has some amount of payment for the work he's going to do, and then once the work is completed, he'll send you some more photos of the pen, and then he'll take another the back half, including shipment. So the first half was 135, and the back half was 180. So that makes it around 210. Sorry, not 200. 310 American dollars. So they're not inexpensive pens, to be clear, but I think that's reflective in the amount of work that he does in these pens. Just to say, that was the cost for this first pen. He gave me somewhat of a discount as a return customer for this pen, so I think I paid sort of 250, 260 for this pen, US dollars again, as a return customer, which I again really appreciate, given that the complexity on this pen was somewhat higher than this one. Now, I'm resident in Ireland, and the shipping from the Philippines to Ireland was done through DHL. No problems whatsoever with DHL shipping from Philippines to Ireland. Fairly seamless, I'd say, and didn't take too long. I'd say no more than 5 or 6 days thereabouts, which is insane given some of the shipping difficulties that I have even getting things delivered from the UK, for example. So overall, a very good sort of customer service interaction with Atelier F, both in the approach to the gentleman. He's very open, very personable, and the collaboration in terms of the customization options, and then again the prompt shipping and reliable shipping is also a big plus. I suppose this is a fountain pen review of a degree, so I must offer a writing sample, but these will be sort of reflective of their respective nibs rather than sort of the in-house nibs that are offered. On that subject, Atelier F offers sort of the base smorgasbord of Yovo 6 nibs, so ranging from extra fine up to broad, and he does also offer an elastic extra fine and elastic F, which are engraved with his own particular design label. I'll just fetch that for you to have a look at. So that's his medium that you can see here. My elastic fine is currently housed in another pen, I think. I'll have to root around to find it, so I'm just going to zoom in there. You can see his design logo engraved onto the nib, which is a nice touch, and you can see that's a medium there. Right, we better get writing, I suppose. This is a Midori MD notepad that I have in A5. I quite enjoy the Midori papers. They're fairly hardy, not much bleeding going on with these. I do also have a Rhodia notebook somewhere. I think paper is going to be the next part of my fountain pen adventure, as well as inks, of which I have started to accumulate quite a fair few bottles. So I suppose we'll start off with the first one, which is this will be called sort of the hammered entropic finish, I suppose. So this is, now probably should have made sure these pens are writing. At the moment it's fairly warm in country, so there's a degree of dry out which is a little bit disproportionate to how they are usually, but should be going there now. So that's Atelier F. There's a custom F4. We'll call it the hammered entropic, and the nib here is cursive. So this is shown designs monarch, which is a gorgeous nib which it entirely deserves its own video at some point, but I'll get into it later. There's a bit of zoom in, so that's the ink here is Diamines Polar Glow, which is from the Inkvent calendar at 2023. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. And just sort of some horizontals, some verticals, some diagonals, some figure eights, and really no flex here to be found. This is a fairly stiff conical type nib, which is not meant for flexing. Just to give you an idea of sort of the variation on the reverse, that is the reverse horizontals, so quite like a highlighter essentially. In terms of wetness on the base regular writing, not overly wet, but quite a nice writer nonetheless. For the standard writing, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So that's how this pen writes, and really no complaints about the balance on this pen whatsoever. It feels really good in the hand. I can grip onto it perfectly. Suits my frankly fairly monster-sized hands, and very comfortable to grip onto. This pen is much the same. Again, it's the same form factor. It's another custom F4. So we'll just zoom in a little bit again. Too much now. And we'll just do a little bit more writing here. So again, this is Atelier F. It's a custom F4. We'll call this the Hanzo edition. The nib is a fine nib. I was looking for a medium, as that's what I usually prefer, but I think this is essentially the last of Stile stock, and they don't have any more options outside of the fine. So to be honest, I don't notice a huge amount of difference. It's still a great writer, and in fact might be a little bit better than the medium Jovos, as it doesn't this doesn't chuck out as much ink as my other Jovo mediums, which is good for my job, as the paper that I write on isn't necessarily the best and is very prone to bleeding and ghosting. So this is Stile. I think it's a collaboration with another company, although name which escapes me at the moment, but it's their Prisma nib. So there's a nice sort of rainbow effect on that. Some horizontals, some verticals, some diagonals, some figure eights. There's not a huge amount of line variation here. This is a steel nib, so I won't be pushing it. That's about as far as it goes. Reverse writing, a little bit scratchy, not my favorite, and I don't particularly have a need to reverse write with this pen as compared to this one, where I might use it to underline things. Wetness wise, on the regular side, again, not hugely wet, but nice flow. And for some writing, zoom in again, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And that's the writing sample for this, the custom F4 Hanzo edition. So all in all, I really enjoy these pens. Both from a sort of in the hand aspect, and also from a design aspect. The engraving options are limitless, essentially. As you can see, the actual resolution of a CNC machine is quite high. Even the sort of finer areas of patterning that you can see up here on the dragon's legs and on his feet and his talons, they're fairly small, and yet you can see them rendered to quite a high degree of detail. So really, your options are limitless. In terms of the coloring, obviously that's a little bit more bound by science in terms of what colors are actually achievable through anodization. But again, he does have his own little workarounds and sort of more interesting color options outside of just a plain flat color. This entropic finish, as he has named it, is fairly spectacular. And again, there's a lot of other custom patterning options that are available, like this faceted or hammered finish that he can offer to you for. I'm not sure what the additional pricing is on top of that, but I'm sure if you'd like, you can discuss that with the gentleman himself and get a better idea of the pricing difference. So as I said, these are not inexpensive pens, but well worth it for what you get, and for the ability to really tailor to what you want out of your pen. Now, obviously, not titanium or metal pens aren't for everyone, but I have a fair few sort of metal or titanium pens which I quite enjoy, and with titanium, there's less of a sort of offensive metallic smell that you might get with brass or copper, but again, that's a personal preference type of thing. So all in all, two great pens which I use fairly regularly in my job, and are very reliable writers and very good in sort of longer writing sessions, which are fairly common, just when I have to do paperwork and I'm writing my notes and things of that nature. So these are very, very, very nice pens. That's about as much as I have to say about these pens, really. If you want any sort of further clarification, I can always shoot an add-on, or explain a little bit more in the comments. But really, that's all I wanted to say, and really I just wanted to shine a spotlight onto Atelier F and the work that he does and the service he provides, and I hope more people become aware of him and give him a bit more business, because he really deserves it. If you go onto his Instagram channel, you can see a lot more fine engraving work that he does, and very, very good design on these engraving patterns. So really, he deserves a lot more attention. If you have any more questions, leave them below in the comments. I've been Pen Throw Dot, and I hope to see you again soon.